Afreximbank TV.
This is Afrexim TV. We are broadcasting in the Bahamas at the Afreximbank Annual Meetings 2024. We have been speaking with leaders and various shakers and movers in the region about the whole concept of global Africa. And now we are joined by Dr. Amany Asfour, the president of the Africa Business Council. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me a little bit about how you see the concept of global Africa kind of supporting the idea of economic transformation in the African region.
So it's very important, global Africa. You know that with Africa and the African Union, the sixth region is the diaspora. And we believe that the whole Caribbean area is a huge sixth region of the Africa. So global Africa is really about harnessing the potentials of the Africa and the Caribbean coming together to enjoy how they can be with financial, with economy, with trade, with investment. It's a huge opportunities, actually, this relation between the Africa and the Caribbean. And we really applaud Afreximbank for taking this initiative, because at African Union we're always talking about the sixth region, but how are we connecting with the sixth region? How are we really getting trade among each other? How we are harnessing our potentials of expertise, change of knowledge, change of experience? The opportunities are huge within the whole over global Africa. And Africa actually now is the richest continent in the world. It's really very important to see how global Africa can perform, whether through the financial reform that is happening now, whether about the beneficiation of the natural resources of the African continent in exchange with also the Caribbean, how we make investment in both regions. So the global Africa is a huge idea that brought to life.
Yeah, and the potential is obviously there, but how do you perceive the role of the Africa Business Council in achieving these?
So the Africa Business Council, established by the heads of states, is really the umbrella of the African private sector, and we already have MOU with the CARICOM private sector to have the Africa Caribbean Business Council, which again see what can we do together. So under Africa Business Council, our founding vision is a competitive, borderless, innovative Africa for trade, investment, and industrialization. And again, it speaks of what the CARICOM wants to do. So Africa Caribbean Business Council, the umbrella of the private sector, is really looking for areas of opportunities like aquaculture and how the expertise within the African continent, like creative industries, agriculture, agribusiness, we have identified like cassava, which is a huge important, what can we do together, fisheries, which is again a very important thing. So huge opportunities, investment, how we build the expertise of our sisters and brothers in the Caribbean with the African expertise. Again, what investment can be done on both sides, how we can have industries for aquaculture and fisheries within the whole Caribbean area to invest the blue economy. It is a huge importance also to identify, and that's what we are trying to do now. Mapping exercise of what can be done on the whole region for Caribbean, how can the African expertise support, how can we have investment in building the capacity of the private sector of the region in Africa and in the Caribbean, how can we have mutual projects that will really have a real economic prosperity. So it's about global Africa, it's about economic transformation, it's about building bridges, it's about prosperity for both the global Africa, Africa and the Caribbean.
Yes, and the conversations are taking place here in the Bahamas, but what has the feedback or interest been like from the private sector, the African private sector, from your interactions with them?
So the private sector is really very motivated and is very excited about exploring opportunities. Like again, for instance, the issue of, as I mentioned, aquaculture and how can we have industries. The tourism industry by whole is huge. How can we have touristic attraction within Africa and the Caribbean and build the tourism industry together? The hospitality industry is very booming here, for instance, in Bahamas. How can we have this expertise? How can we have in agriculture and agribusiness? So As long as we have identified the project that we need, the private sector is very, very enthusiastic about supporting and about coming together and about linking with the private sector of the CARICOM here. And I believe this is the phase of starting this economic prosperity for both regions and South-South cooperation, which we really see how we have the building the potential. But we really need an enabling environment to do that, and investment business opportunities. We need to build the capacity of our African private sector, including SMEs, women and youth, because as we know in Africa, for instance, more than 60% of our African content are youth less than 25 years old. Mm-hmm. So how is this really going to support our African youth to build its capacity and to link with the youth and in the CARICOM region? And so it needs first mapping exercise of what existing projects, what do we need for investment, how we can have a directory for products, also with trade. So again, trade is very important between both regions. What is present in the CARICOM area that we can have in Africa, and what's Africa that we can really have together, so the Atlantic would really be building bridges for trade, for economic prosperity of both. It's one destiny for our people.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about those various groups, but you also mentioned women, and I know you also hold various roles in ensuring women empowerment and women in business. So I'd like to shift gears a little bit to touch on how, as we have these discussions, we ensure that the gap isn't widened and women as well, women entrepreneurs are able to tap into these opportunities as the conversations go on, as we make decisions around this.
So this is a very important question, dear to my heart, because for me, economic empowerment of women is the core for development of any country, any continent, any region. And because they are half of the society, you cannot play with half the team around on the marginalized. So women economic empowerment is on the core of the Africa Business Council, again with Africa Caribbean. During this meeting, we will be having a session on the Africa Caribbean businesswomen, how we can collaborate together. We have a lot of things to do: agriculture, agribusiness, fashion industry, creative industries, tourism industries. It's very important also, again, to build these business linkages. And again, Africa Business Council is doing an initiative, inshallah, in November, that we will be in St. Kitts, the Africa Caribbean Businesswomen Forum, that will be there alongside the International Federation of Business and Professional Women Congress. So we are also promoting how we can have those business linkages between the businesswomen in the African continent and the Caribbean. We have the same culture, we have the same spirit, and that's why it's very important to see how we link together. I come from Egypt, so for me it's Cleopatra, it's Hatshepsut, you know, it's the whole African queens that come together to see how we build our African-Caribbean relation, building to the mother Africa, and how all of us as women of the continent and the CARICOM come together for the better of our nations.
Awesome, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right, so I mean, it's clear that there is so much potential for collaboration and opportunities for prosperities for both regions. I think it is just making sure that we have the right strategies in place. So thank you so much for joining us.
All right.
You are watching Afrexim TV. We are at the annual meeting of the Afreximbank here in the Bahamas. Thank you for watching.